victory. So let's talk about that 2006 schedule, Gabe. Rutgers, home against UMass. I thought UMass was a basketball program.
They're barely that. They don't do much in March Madness. They're a fringe March Madness team year in, year out. I don't know anything about their football program, and I hope that I don't have to learn the hard way. I'm predicting that's an easy win.
And what a game that's going to be when the head coach of UMass will be none other than the former defensive coordinator for Rutgers who left this year. Joe Harismiak. That's going to be an interesting story. Now,
absolutely.
After UMass, this game always concerns me. They're going to go up to Chestnut Hill, Boston College, to face the Eagles and Bill O'Brien. Now, Boston College, one of those teams that can compete with anybody, pull some upsets, but also doesn't have the talent of an Alabama or a Texas, but always a dangerous team. What do you think about that game against Boston College?
Well, I don't think Bill O'Brien's a name that you hear going crazy with recruits. He's a very good coordinator, and that's pretty much all I can do with compliments for him. I mean, he's got an offensive mind, but with this new defense, and we're going to have a lot of familiar faces in 2026 too, I can see us Legion of booming them and having them maybe get shut out in the first half, put in their second stringers. I'm saying that's 2 blowouts right now, Adam.
Yep. And I'm going to make a prediction in 2026 that young but now experienced secondary is going to get a lot of turnovers, and they're going to get 3 of them at Boston College, and they're going to win the game 30-17. Third game is against – that's right, because Rutgers, 2026 is their year. Now, the next game is home against Howard University. Howard University, always known as a very, very respected academic institution. But like UMass, do they have a football program?
Well, the thing is, HBCU schools athletically are on the up. You know that. I know that. Look at what Deion Sanders brought to HBCUs. Deshaun Jackson now coaches Delaware State.
Absolutely.
So look for more HBCUs to get stacked with talent. That's definitely going to be a close game. We can't predict the roster at all because top to bottom, they're going to be talented. It's going to be close. But if this is our year, like you're saying it is, I'll give us the 3-0 on that one because we don't even know what the team looks like. But if we don't know what they look like, there's not going to be that culture, that chemistry that they need to beat us.
Yeah, I think that could be a trap game. Like you said, the HSBCUs are impressive. They have become very competitive, and they are teams to be reckoned with. I think it's going to be closer than the experts think.
But I think it'll be closer. That'll be closer than week 1 or 2.
I agree with you, and I think it'll be competitive into the fourth quarter. I think Rutgers pulls out a 10-point victory. The next game, another game that always bothers me against this team, because this team is capable of anything, capable of upsetting the best teams but losing to the worst teams. That's the Terrapins of Maryland, at Maryland. What are your thoughts on that?
You'll have to remind. Did we face them last year? I don't think we did, right?
We defeated them 31-17 on the road at the end of the year.
Okay. I guess that was one of those games that blended in just because of those few losses that stood out. And
that's exactly right.
Yeah, it was just in between some heartbreaks, so it must have got pushed to the side. But, I mean, look, Maryland's a great school. If it's a year that we're supposed to contend for the playoffs, Maryland is not going to be near the playoffs. I mean, that's all I can say based on, history repeating itself. But
sure.
So, I mean, again, it's a trap game. They play tough. We should, in theory, beat them. I can't give any score on it. It will probably be close, within 2 possessions at least. So I'm thinking around that, maybe that 31-17 mark you said for week 1.
I was just going to say, I'm going to predict the identical score, 31-17, as Mike Loxley will begin contemplating whether Maryland is the place where he wants to remain. because Maryland just never seems to get over the hump. Enough talent to challenge you and even beat you like they did with USC this year, but I don't think it's going to happen for them against the Scarlet Knights in 2026. Next game is on the road again against another academic school
Road again.
in that windy city called Chicago, Illinois, against those pesky Northwestern Wildcats. I'm predicting a blowout here. What do you think?
Yeah, how's the chemistry over there? Are they all back to normal now?
Oh, good. That's a good question. I'm not sure.
I know their athletic program was really in the gutter after the whole hazing scandal came out in 2023.
I don't know if the chemistry is back. I think that hazing incident was terrible. I also think that they just don't have the players, and I don't think football is a huge priority at that elite academic school. I think Northwestern puts up a fight for a half. Rutgers runs away with it in the second half.
I think so too. I think we'll wake up. Shiana will light a fire under their asses, and we'll wake up.
Absolutely, I agree with you. Now, the next game I am going to predict will be our first loss of the season. And the reason in 2026 it will be our first loss of the season is because in Happy Valley, Penn State will not have Drew Aller. They will have another quarterback, and that other quarterback will not turn the ball over. Rutgers will struggle against a very stiff Nittany Lion defense. I think Penn State comes away with the win 28-10.
Don't forget, though, Drew Aller really elevated this Nittany Lions program. Before him, you weren't talking about them in any playoff hunt, and he really elevated that program specifically with his arm offensively. Just because he has some mental mistakes doesn't necessarily mean that it's an addition by subtraction when he declares. I mean, you're losing a big quarterback there when he goes. Now, they should, in theory, have a good development program for his backups, and they should have fine seasons. But off the bat, you can't expect Drew Aller performances. So I think it'll be close, but I didn't say we would beat them this year. I didn't say we'd lose to them, but I'll say 20. I will agree that we probably do lose to them in 2026.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I'm going to have to disagree on Drew Aller for one simple reason. It's a college football playoff. There's 38 seconds left. The game is tied. You have the ball. You have a chance to drive down for a field goal. Worst case scenario, the game will remain tied. You'll go into overtime with that outstanding Penn State defense. And Notre Dame's going to struggle to score. So they go into overtime, and during overtime, oh, wait a second, I'm sorry, it never got to overtime because Drew Aller throws an interception that is utterly inexcusable into the middle of the field, setting up the Notre Dame victory.
Sure.
I wish the best for Drew Aller. I hope he goes to the NFL and is a star, but what I saw from that was an issue with the intangibles, with the mindset, with the ability to process quickly, get that ball out of bounds. To make a mistake that bad is a red flag for me. So I think maybe you're right. Drew Aller does elevate Penn State, but it kind of reminds me of a tutor that you have that only elevates you to a B+. We need a quarterback who's going to bring them over the hump.
You don't think Penn State making the playoffs this year was an A on its own, considering they haven't been playoff worthy in who knows how long? I know the format's different, so there's more wiggle room. But even if other years were 12 teams, they were still nowhere near the top 12.
I would agree with you on that. And then, I'm going to say that the next game at home is a win because I'm going to say that this team is a one-hit wonder, and that's the Hoosiers from Indiana. Signetti does not get the confetti in Piscataway, and I think Rutgers wins by 10 points. What are your thoughts?
I agree with you. I do think we beat them. But my only issue here is we're predicting at this point, 6-1, 7-1?
We are.
And it's easy to say on paper we're better. We think we can beat them. But if you're looking back, the amount of factors that play into winning week in and week out, then you'd have to make that of 5 weeks in a row, 6 weeks in a row. It's tough to say that we'll play the perfect football we need to start off this hot. But on a weekly basis, I do think we beat Indiana.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's going to be interesting, our discussion right now, because we've got 5 games to go. After we discuss those 5 games, you've got a call. Austin Williams, always good to see him. We're going to bring him on for his great comments. But the next game is home, and it's going to be against a quarterback that everyone's saying is the future at Michigan and one of the best prospects
Absolutely
in a while, Bryce Underwood. And the Wolverines come into Piscataway. I think we've got loss number 2, Michigan, in a closer than expected victory, 20-13. What are your thoughts?
I think that we beat Michigan as long as they're at this level of football and not anywhere near 2023 with Harbaugh. I mean, I like their head coach now. I believe he was offensive coordinator before that, Sharon Moore. But I don't know if the players buy into him the same way they did Harbaugh, given the fact that Moore doesn't have any NFL experience. He doesn't have any experience converting these guys into professionals like they hope to be.
Sure.
So, sure, they'll play hard, but will they have the roster? I don't think so. I'm going to go ahead and say we win by a score. But
all right, you heard it here first. A shocking prediction.
Absolutely. But with that being said, obviously with Michigan, anything can happen. They're a historically elite level program. But
Well,
I don't know. I don't see them.
I predicted that we'd beat Oregon next year and Penn State, so you are certainly more than entitled to make a shock upset prediction. Bryce Underwood in his second year will fall flat
That's
against the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. You heard it here first. Let's hope that's true.
Second year, a lot to learn.
Yeah. The next week, of course, in my opinion, the game is in Piscataway against what I consider to be a very silly team. A team that is always failing to meet expectations and rarely even knocking on the door. That is the Spartans, Michigan State. I think Rutgers pulls out a 33-20 victory in Piscataway. What are your thoughts?
My prediction isn't much different. They are silly, as you say. They're more of a basketball school now anyways.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to give them some respect, but I don't know what to even compliment on, especially in 2 years' time. They're definitely on the wrong trajectory. They're not a team that you would invest in if you saw them on a stock. I wouldn't put it past them that it's a blowout.
Yes. Perhaps they will have a ceremony in Piscataway honoring Tom Izzo for his accomplishments with the basketball team. But the football team, in my view, will not succeed. And then we have another home game against our good friend Dylan Raiola, apparently the heir apparent at Nebraska, who was the next Patrick Mahomes, but didn't quite pan out for Dylan and the Cornhuskers this year. I think this is going to be a brawl in the trenches, go down late into the fourth quarter, with Rutgers pulling out a 13-10 victory. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, let me say this about Dylan Raiola. I made a top 10 Big Ten quarterbacks ranking for the Voice of College Football X account. It unfortunately got taken down because autocorrect made Jaden Hayden, and that doesn't look very good. But while it was up, a lot of people were bashing my ranking of Dylan Raiola on the ranking. I had him as the 7th best Big Ten quarterback, actually behind Callie McManus. What has Dylan Raiola done to deserve anything higher than that? He's got potential. No one's taking that away from him. But just because he has Mahomes' phone number doesn't make him Patrick freaking Mahomes. And people need to chill out on this generational talk with him and thinking that he is what Bryce Underwood should be. He's nowhere near that. Now, I don't have anything against him personally. It's really just his fans that were getting under my skin, rightfully so, I think, because all of my peers were saying that the list was spot on. Now, they started off last year very similar to us. They got off hot. They started off hot. Then they kind of plundered a little bit. And then they cooked up a little something, and then they fell short of anyone taking them seriously. Next year, I look for it to be the same. And the year after, if he's still at Nebraska and he doesn't transfer somewhere else or declare after next year, I think that it'll be a similar result. We're going to beat Nebraska, and we're going to do so. I'll say 26-17.
Okay, fair prediction. Then we have another home game against the University of Southern California Trojans. And what really bothered me about our 42-20 loss this year, it wasn't the point differential as much as it was the differential in physicality. USC was just so superior in the trenches and far more physical that I think it overwhelmed Rutgers in the end. That was the game when Monangai was injured. The question is going to be in 2 years, will we have the physicality, the size, and the speed to compete with the Trojans in Piscataway? I think the answer to that is yes, and I think Rutgers comes out with a 28-27 victory in a thriller.
Yeah, I know it's kind of contradictory to me to say this considering I just predicted we beat Michigan, but USC, no chance. USC later, go back to Piscataway. I mean, the thing is with USC, even when they have an off year, they're still going to get a lot of commits because of the location. It's smack in the middle of Los Angeles. It's the West Coast. It's when it comes to football, it might be the school when it comes to the West Coast. Obviously, with other sports, there's like for basketball, UCLA, et cetera. But you can't just count them out. And no matter how good of a year we have, they're the school in the West Coast everyone wants to go to. They're the school with elite quarterback play. And when they don't have elite quarterback play, they get commits that are elite quarterbacks and they transform them. Their staff is incredible. Their offense is always top tier. I mean, this might be the humbling game. We've had a 5-game winning streak. We've had a 4-game winning streak in this 2026 year. But this is the game that kind of humbles us and reshapes us into how can we become better and stop coasting. We're going to lose this game, and we're going to lose by 10, 14 points.
Okay, that's a fair prediction, and I don't have much confidence in mine. I do think if Rutgers is more physical, they can compete with the USC team that at that point will have lost a lot of players from their current roster. But like you said, they always have a great staff. They always recruit great talent. So we'll see. But let's assume that you're right and I'm wrong, and Rutgers goes in 9-2, last game of the year. And they fly to Camp Randall in beautiful Madison, Wisconsin to face those very resilient Badgers who are particularly tough to play in Camp Randall. I think this is the game where it comes down to the fourth quarter, but Rutgers, unfortunately, does not pull it out to end the season 9-3 and loses the game 26-20. Your thoughts?
See, we played absolutely terrible against them this past year. So, take this with a grain of salt. But there's no reason for us to even have a close game against them. We should really beat them. We were supposed to beat them this past year. It was mental games. And hopefully with Shiano and with these upcoming sophomores that are going to be seniors in 2026, that this game will be one that solidifies us for the playoff hunt. And maybe if we beat them and we go 10-2, like Adam and I predict, just in different circumstances, then maybe we do get into the playoffs. Maybe that is our year. And then with all the losses the following year, we can get some more commits that will solidify the dominance of future Rutgers Scarlet Knights football.
Absolutely. And if we do get into the playoffs, watch out, because Rutgers is going to play like they have nothing to lose.
Yep.
They're going to play loose, and you could see something special happen in those playoffs. So great discussion about the 2026 season. We look forward to see how things develop in 25 and 26 to see can Rutgers break through and become a contender in the Big Ten. Now,
and the best part about this is we can stand on this for as long as possible, because that is 2 years away, and we can look like a-holes and talk about how this is nothing but a fact when we're predicting it.
Absolutely.